Hello, and once again, welcome to the program Your Local Government. I'm Bob Miller with Blue Ridge Communications, and this is the program focusing on government issues. We have an election coming up, of course, as everyone knows, and as we know, Representative Pitts is stepping down, and one of the people running for that position is Shawn House, and he's on the Libertarian Party. And Shawn, thank you for being with us. First time here with us on Your Local Government.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks for having me.
I'm sure a lot of folks are very curious about the Libertarian Party. We're going to spend our first segment on that. But first, walk us through your education, your work history, and then what got you involved into the political situation.
Well, I was born about a month before President Kennedy was assassinated. I'll be 53 in October of this year. I'm married, have a 10-year-old daughter in Columbia High School, or Columbia Middle School. And I've been involved with the Libertarian Party since about 1992. The first fifth of my year, the first 10 years, 11 years of my existence, my father was in the military. I was born in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, part of the 16th Congressional District. Mm-hmm. We did a lot of traveling. We were in a couple places in Pennsylvania, Germany, Texas, Maryland, Washington State, Alabama. My father was getting ready to go to Vietnam. So I did a lot of traveling at that time. My mother was up in the Ashland, Schuylkill Haven area. Her father was a coal miner. We had come back in 1975 when my father decided to retire. Came back to Coatesville, ended up getting a house in Cochranville, Pennsylvania, which is in Chester County there, mm-hmm. and graduated from high school in about 1982. Mm-hmm. I'm into history, into antiques. My father was always a big collector. We used to go up to Adamstown to the Black Angus Antique Mall and set up and vend on the weekends as a kind of hobby. Mm-hmm. If you ever go down to Ed Stout's market there and look up on the ceilings and see a lot of those posters, a lot of those came from my father during our years doing that.
Yes.
So I had worked in Philadelphia, come back, after high school in 1982, I graduated from Octorara High School. I worked at Turkey Hill, night shift for about $3.65 an hour when we used to wear a tie and do the deli meats and things of that nature, Store 82. Figured I couldn't really do much with my life working minimum wage.
Right.
Decided to get an education, went out to DeVry Institute of Technology in Columbus, Ohio. There I studied computers, computer information systems, accounting, management. I got my Bachelor of Science degree in computer information systems in 1986. I had a brother die unexpectedly, kind of through the drug war issue, and I had come back to Pennsylvania, 1986. I got employed down in Philadelphia in information processing supplies. At that time, we were selling 8-inch floppy disk, wide cloth computer ribbons, and 5 1/4, then 3 1/2 magnetic tape. And I did a lot of traveling and meeting with all kinds of individuals. I remember calling on QVC Network when they had one building up on 202 in Malvern back in early 80s.
Yes.
In that sense. Used to listen to a lot of radio, got bored with that in my travels. I'd always listened to Irv Homer on WWDB out of Philadelphia, always had interesting topics, and that's where I got turned on to the Libertarian Party. It's about 1991, 1992. I heard a female vice presidential candidate, Nancy Lord, and she was talking about libertarianism, and I had been a member of the John Birch Society previously, so I was understood the issues that our State Department was going through, our Constitution, foreign entanglements, but they were more education, and I felt I wanted to get a little bit more active. And so when I heard Nancy Lord talking and Andre Moreau, who had been an elected libertarian in Alaska, I was like, I'm a libertarian. So April 20th of 1992, I joined the Libertarian Party. And I've been involved with them when we were a discussion group in Lancaster County. We ended up becoming a political organization in '93. I became a chair of that organization. During that time, we ran John Booker Herr for county commissioner. We ran Brandon Bello Santiago for mayor. I presently own the Lancaster Trading House, and I'm involved with the Hemp Industries Association. I've been doing the hemp cannabis issues for about 20 years now. I have a website, hempsels.com. I work with Pennsylvania preferred bakeries and packaging facilities. I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Sure.
And we import our hemp seed and we make pretzels that have more protein and omega-3, value-adding products. Our horseradish, hemp, and honey mustards in Wegmans grocery stores. And my company's ultimate goal is to contract with our Pennsylvania farmers for hemp fiber, seed, and oil.
Exactly.
So lo and behold, I was asked by the Hemp Industries Association to contact Representative Joe Pitts because he was holding up key parts of legislation that were going to help Pennsylvania or something on the federal level. And I had been so tired of contacting these politicians because I'm not a lobbyist, and found out that he wasn't seeking office. And I feel that I would be a good candidate to represent the people. So
all right, that brings us to there's four main principles being a libertarian, and we're running a little short, so if you could burn through those four pretty quickly. The four main principles of libertarianism.
Absolute, recognizing absolute individuals to be able to make their own choice. Libertarian is about freedom, the absolute right to self-defense, recognizing and respecting people's autonomy, and getting the government out of our bedrooms and out of our pocketbooks. Those are kind of a few of the key issues.
Sure. Now, what's the trend? I mean, we hear about it now and again, but is it growing, flat? What is the overall trend of the interest in the party?
The party is growing. The older two parties that have been the oligarchy for a while are decreasing. We have about 48,000 registered libertarians in Pennsylvania at the moment, and we continue to grow. Sure.
There appears to be a worldwide movement away from the establishment. I mean, the Brexit in Britain is an example that everyone was kind of surprised, and that there seems to be some pushback against establishment. Are you tapping into that?
I think so. And the libertarianismo in Spanish, the libertarian movement is a international movement. It's sad with the ISIL group, because ISIL actually was the International Society for Individual Liberty, which was a libertarian group, and then there was a lot of confusion.
Right.
But absolutely, I think with the communications and networking, people are becoming more aware.
Sure, we'll talk about this in the next segment. Let's talk about when Ron Paul ran in 2008 and 12. Quite the interest among the youth. It was interestingly youth-driven that were interested in his message.
Yes, I was involved with that in 2008 in Lancaster County, also in 2012. It was disheartening to find that the Republicans would turn their back on such an eloquent constitutionalist congressman that had really walked the walk, not just talked the talk. So I see that also with the Bernie Sanders and the Democrats, where there was a lot of youth involved that way, and then the DNC purposely excluded him too. So I think, again, the two parties are getting the backlash because of their manipulation of the electorate.
Okay, it's time for a break. We'll be right back after these few words. Stay with us. And welcome back to the program, Your Local Government. Again, our guest today is Shawn House, and he is running for the U.S. House of Representatives down in Washington. And again, Shawn, thank you for being with us. In the last segment, we were talking a little bit about how Ron Paul really attracted the youth. What I think people look back historically was how Bernie Sanders attracted the youth on probably a political spectrum that's probably pretty far away from yours. So I guess the question from an analytical standpoint, are youth moving more in that direction, or are they still interested in the libertarian viewpoint? What is happening here demographically?
I think because of the libertarian perspective on ending the war on drugs, being against crony capitalism, the bailout issues, the blatant disregard for the rule of law, we do have a lot of the youth getting involved. In fact, we have the Youth Liberty Caucus, which is a national organization that's been helping our candidates, and we're attracting them. Now, they also are being attracted to Jill Stein with the Green Party, and our party, the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania, worked with the Green Party of Pennsylvania and the Constitution Party regarding ballot access. So I think the youth want more choices. They know there's more than Coke and Pepsi. as consumers, and there should be more than just the two old parties.
Okay, well now we'll spend the rest of this next segment looking at some of your policy positions. And one of the ones that was interesting was medical marijuana. So tell me your policy on this and why you believe that's the correct policy.
Well, first off, I like to use the word cannabis. Cannabis denotes medicine. It's always been that way in pharmacopoeia. So I have been involved with the hemp industry for the last 20 years. One of my key differences with myself and my opponents running is my job as a congressman is to keep people, or keep the federal government out of people's gardens. So part of my platform is absolutely respecting the individual's rights to self-cultivate cannabis. I've been talking about cannabis and hemp for 20 years. Started with Senator Fulmer in 2009. It was a big joke to a lot of folks, but I was serious in my intent. And 20 years later, we're there, and the reason that we're there is because it's a tax revenue. But they still have a state store mentality about that. And my opponent voted against SB 3, the medical cannabis, but people have to have that right to self-medicate and make those choices themselves. So we want to do the same thing with the Hemp Industries Association. They passed the hemp bill, but it's to study it. And hemp is one of the oldest fiber seed and oil crops in recorded history. I've covered the Conestoga wagon in Conestoga, PA twice with hemp canvas.
Yes.
And that was way before the issues of raising hemp. So
Sure. Many people, we talked about this on a previous show, that in Lancaster County we have Hempfield Township.
Correct.
And that was part of their history of growing the hemp for those purposes back then.
unfortunately, our kids aren't being taught this in public education.
Let's talk about military. You have a very unique position on military size and diplomacy. Tell us about that.
Well, my father was in the military, and I was raised in a very authoritarian family. I did quite well in my ASVABs, my Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. I could have went into the nuclear sub program, but that wasn't for me, embracing libertarianism. We have too many issues of policing the world. I find it really sad that so many of our returning veterans are committing suicide at an unprecedented level. I think that speaks volumes in the sense of what we should be doing as a country. I don't think that we need to be in Afghanistan. I think that was a real fiasco. That's longer than Vietnam. The same with Iran, Iraq, all these boogeymen that the Mideast has a lot of civil wars, but we cannot be funding both sides of a civil war, and the U.S. has perpetually done that. So I definitely want to downsize more. We need to pull our troops out of Japan. The people in Okinawa do not like us being there. We are not working within their framework of law. There's been quite a few abuses. We need to pull our troops away from Germany. We should not be paying so much. NATO should be covering their end in Europe. The United States doesn't need to be there. So I definitely want to do what the Grace Commission recommended. Even the Pentagon itself recommended 20% cuts. I think we could cut a lot more there. There's a lot of wasteful spending on our part with the military. A lot of bases that don't need to be open. I'm certainly for a strong national defense, an absolute right to self-defend ourselves, and people should be knowledgeable about guns and weapons and things, but I am not for the policemen of the world and putting young women and children in harm's way without any type of goal.
Yes. Let's move on to healthcare. Clearly, over the past 8 years, been a lot of discussion with the implementation of what's called Obamacare, and there's those who are in favor, those see downsides. So what's your policy position on how we should handle healthcare?
Well, first off, people should not be fined or penalized for not signing up for the Affordable Health Care. In my mind, the Affordable Health Care Act should compete with USAA, GEICO, be competitive. I think that we need to be able to get cheaper catastrophic insurance, but we ourselves as individuals need to take more control. Personally, myself, I have health savings accounts. I deal directly with my doctors, and I'll use one example. I've had some physical issues myself. I was told to go get blood work. The blood work was going to cost $500. I went to Quest Diagnostics. It was $182. So a family of three is myself, my wife, my daughter, and I. It's about $1,000 a month just to pay the monthly fee. That doesn't include my deductibles, and it doesn't include all coverage. I personally would rather deal directly with my physicians. Another example, my blood work was apparently off. Well, apparently the hospital had merged my data with someone else's, and they were going to have me get more records. So We need to have more competition. We need to possibly abolish the FDA. I don't find them serving a useful purpose. They're limiting what people can, how people can medicate, what they can, what services they can go after, and what is covered. So we definitely need more competition when it comes to taking care of ourselves. And that has to do with subsidies and why a hamburger is $1 and a salad is $7. Mm-hmm. You know, we have some of our funding priorities definitely wrong.
Sure.
But it's something that we need to take control of.
Sure. I think what you're stating here is if people had to pay more of their medical expenses, there'd be a competitive component to it, and the overall cost might come down. Is that?
Absolutely, versus thinking carte blanche, oh, insurance is going to cover it for it, and not even knowing what the actual fees are.
So that may push the prices up.
I think it'll lower the prices.
No, I mean, if the insurance, everything's covered by insurance, that may push the price up.
Oh, it does, and it has. The cost to do anything. We see this thing with the EpiPen being $600. That was something that the federal government was involved with for 40 years helping. And here we have a monopoly, and I'm against monopolies. I'm against bigness in government. We should have more competitive people so you could make your own EpiPen for $10.
Sure.
You know, versus spending $600 for something of that nature.
Sure.
It's really ridiculous.
I recently read that the cost of the EpiPen to make it's about $3.
I don't doubt it. A lot of that's into marketing and paying lobbyists. That's part of the pharmaceutical industry, which is kind of a monopoly in one way.
Okay, it's time for another break, and we'll be right back after these few words. Stay with us. And welcome back to the final segment of Your Local Government. Our guest today again is Shawn House, who is running for the United States House of Representatives down in Washington, going to try to compete or to replace Joseph Pitts, who served for a long period of time. You have a very strong position on drug laws. Tell me those.
We need to abolish the Drug Enforcement Agency. They really serve no purpose. It's selective enforcement. We have a lot more pharmaceutical drugs that are abused, but it's that issue with cannabis and it being a Schedule I narcotic when it should never have been scheduled that way. Timothy Leary was part of the court case in 1967 that showed marijuana, that the tax act of the marijuana, put on marijuana was unconstitutional, but Dick Nixon, who was an impeached president, had started this war on drugs. People need help. If people are abusing substances, it's a cry for help. Putting people in jail is not beneficial to the taxpayers. It's not beneficial to individuals. So we need to end this war on drugs. And I need to be that person to stand up in Congress and say, 50 years is more than enough, and let's end this war on drugs.
Okay, let's talk about your positions on NSA and TSA.
I think the NSA needs a good, more transparency. In my perfect world, I think that we have given up too much of our privacy voluntarily through our electronic devices. Not that I would do it, but I would certainly recommend that if people were buying a brand new TV, that there would be some type of sticker on there that says, this TV will provide great viewing, but it has the ability to record you. Do you know that? You know, our cell phones are basically tracking devices in that sense. And I think we've lost a lot with our Fourth Amendment rights to be secure in our possessions and our property. There's too much spying. We have too much counter spying that way. So those type of folks need better oversight, and we need to tear that down.
Okay, and your thoughts on TSA?
I've heard that they've had about 400 of their representatives put in jail for theft. I find no purpose for the TSA. I don't even fly much anymore because I hate to be fondled when I'm getting onto a plane. So that is something too that I think private security through an airport could do a lot better than a government agency. So I would be certainly one to say, let's abolish the TSA, save the taxpayers' money, put it into things that we need to do, shore up Social Security, these other type of funds versus supplying TSA with any more funds.
So just so we're clear, you want to make sure that people aren't getting guns or weapons onto the planes, but you'd rather migrate that to the private industry rather than the government.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, if people, law-abiding citizens, have guns or weapons, what's wrong with a law-abiding citizen doing that? The issue is the criminal mentality.
Right.
So, I mean, certainly criminals, and that's what we have air marshals for, and the private sector needs to take care of that versus another agency.
Sure. Second Amendment, I suspect you're a strong
Strongest Second Amendment. I wouldn't even see a reason why we shouldn't be training children in school. That goes along with a strong national defense. There needs to be respect. I have my own permit to carry a weapon. I have not renewed it. I don't carry a weapon, but the absolute right to self-defense, it is a last resort, but that cannot be denied and should not be denied.
Sure. Any thoughts? I mean, I know there's concern about all the killing with guns, and that's the rationale for trying to limit. Do you think if they were limited, it would have any impact on violence?
No, because it has nothing to do with law-abiding citizens. You know, a criminal element is a criminal element. I think there's more abortion issue deaths than there is through weapons. There's more car accidents. There's a lot more ways of people killing themselves, and it's the same with guns or knives or their hands. I mean, I'm certainly a proponent of peace, tolerance, understanding, but I don't not believe that limiting weapons is going to do anything but help our criminal element.
Okay. You want to have able to opt out of Social Security. Tell us about that.
Well, first off, I think we need to take our legislators and those elected officials and put them into the Social Security system so they understand. We also need to shore up Social Security. That's not a bank account that we should be drawing funds from. If people have put money into that, they need to be able to get their money out. But I don't think I'll ever get my Social Security. I don't expect to take a government pension either from, if I get elected to Congress, I'm not going to take a government pension. And I don't believe elected officials, I don't believe any elected official deserves a government, a taxpayer-funded pension. So we definitely need different savings ways and more competitiveness. I'm certainly against people getting fined for taking money out of their IRA because they need to pay their bills, and then they're getting fined for that way.
Okay, you got about 3 minutes. I want to cover a couple more things. You want to pass legislation to eliminate the federal income tax. Tell us about that.
Well, the federal income tax is basically used to pay not the profits, but the interest
on the
on the loan. So yeah, we need to eliminate that federal income tax for everybody. People need to keep more of their own money so they can pay for their children to go to school. They can use that for the economy.
Okay, and you'd like to take federal spending to the 1998 level. How would that be accomplished?
Well, first off, we've got to look at our pensions. We have about $18 billion in Pennsylvania that's unfunded pension benefits right now. Where's that money coming from? It's coming from the folks that are working. We need to reduce a lot of our duplication in services. We've got to look at our funding mechanisms on how things are being funded. We have a lot of taxes. We have a Civil War tax. I don't understand why we do that, but if we cut down to the necessity of what government is, the smallest way, we certainly can reduce our debt, even at the Grace Commission.
Sure, in under a minute. How do you get the IRS off the backs of taxpayers?
How do we get the IRS off the back? By eliminating the IRS, abolishing the IRS. They have made things so complicated. They have created an industry within themselves, even for our accountants and all those folks that are following the rules. When the IRS doesn't even know its own rule book and can't answer a question, I think people need to be exempt from that. Back in the day, back in the 1900s, early 1900s, it was only the folks that made a lot of money that paid income taxes. The average person didn't do that. I think we're wasting a lot of time and a lot of money putting money into the IRS. It's not being used appropriately anyways.
So what would be the mechanism to collect the tax funds to fund what you consider are essential services?
We would do user fees and things of that nature, just like we work with our trash companies now,
Gotcha.
Our water companies now. Those things could be set up, and at least those people are responsible and accountable. All this has to be transparent.
Gotcha.
If they're getting money from the federal budget, these agencies have to be better transparent so we can see waste.
Okay, it's time for you to tell everybody why they should vote for you in November.
Well, I'm not involved with corporations. I think I speak for the individual. I worked hard in the Hemp Industries Association. I work as hard in Congress for you to keep the federal government out of your garden. I want justice. I want to represent the people. I think I would be the best type of person and have the people working around me that can really make a difference. So if you're tired of the two old parties, tired of the Coke and Pepsi mentality, join us.
Okay, Shawn, thank you for being with us. It's been a pleasure to have you here. And that's going to do it for this program. Join us again next time to learn about your local government.